Introduce our third speaker of today's session, Dr. KJ Mahendra Babu sir, Assistant Professor and Deputy COE of PH College of Engineering, Mandya, who is going to speak about the temperature, measurement and monitoring of thermal systems today. Sir has 25 years of teaching experience and research area of Sir is thermal engineering. And Sir has published almost 7 international journals and 6 international conferences. With all this, I request Dr. KJ Mahendra Babu sir to share his knowledge on today's topic, that is temperature measurement and monitoring of thermal systems. I welcome you, sir.
Okay, thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. So first of all, I would like to thank coordinator and the organizing committee for giving me a chance to share knowledge about whatever I know regarding temperature measurement and monitoring. Thank you, Guru and Dr. Rupesh. The topic which was given to me was temperature measurement and monitoring. As we know, temperature is one of the most common physical quantity we may wish to measure. So behind the obvious reason that temperature is interesting, measuring temperature is also necessary to properly calibrate other types of sensors like pressure. Temperature monitoring includes both measurement as well as recording, and is important wherever temperature sensitive products are studied, produced, stored, or transported. In case of designing a personal electronics, industrial, or medical application, engineers must address some of the challenges like how to increase the performance, add features, and shrink form factors. Along with these considerations, they must also carefully monitor temperature in order to ensure safety and protect system and also the consumer. Another trend spanning numerous industries is the need to process more data from more sensors, demanding the importance of a temperature measurement, not only just to measure the system or environmental condition, but to compensate for other temperature sensitivity components in order to maintain both sensor and system accuracy. As an added benefit, accurate temperature Sorry for the disturbance. So as an added benefit, accurate temperature monitoring can increase system performance and reduce cost by removing the need to over-design system to compensate for inaccurate temperature measurement. Not only in the engineering field, life science and medical sector also demands for monitoring of temperature. So for example, in the medical, as we know, the medical devices are very small and compact. The construction of a temperature sensor is very important in such cases. For example, in monitoring of temperature for extremely important to a human physiology, and also temperature need to be tracked in case of vaccines. Otherwise, it may lead to some damages to the vaccines. So temperature sensing is one of the most sensitive property or parameters for industries. Most of the industries like petrochemicals, automotives, aerospace and defense, consumer electronics and so on, these sensors are installed into a device with purpose of measuring the temperature of a medium accurately and efficiently in a given set of requirement. So with this background about the temperature measurement and monitoring, I'll try to give the basic concept of temperature measurement and how it works, different types of temperature measurement systems, etc. So these are the main concepts that I am going to cover in this session. As I said earlier, today I'll cover the basic concept of temperature measurement. And regarding the application side of temperature measurement, one of my friend, Dr. D.K. Ramesh, professor from UVCE, is going to cover the application side of temperature measurement so that you will get an idea regarding the basic concept as well as application side of temperature measurement and monitoring. So in this session, I'm going to cover about the measuring the temperature sensors, characteristics, what are the different types of temperature sensors that are normally used for different applications, calibrating the temperature sensors, thermal system transient response, and categories of applications. So first of all, what is a temperature? What is a temperature? So answer to this question is one of the simplified definition of temperature is a measure of tendency of an object to spontaneously give up energy to its surrounding. So whenever two objects are in thermal contact, one that tends to spontaneously lose energy is at a higher temperature and other is at a lower temperature. This is one of the simplified description or definition of a temperature. And looking at this is the block diagram of structure of measurement systems. As you know, you take any measurement system, this is the main structure of measurement system. So it mainly consists of a primary sensing element which receives signals from the quantity which is to be measured. So basically it consists of 5 elements: primary sensing element, signal conditioning element, signal processing element, data transmission element, and data presentation element. So, you know, sensing element, this is usually in contact with the process and it gives an output which depends in some way on the variable to be measured. For example, thermocouple, where a millivoltmeter EMF depends on the temperature. Or if you consider a strain gauge, where the resistance depends upon the mechanical strain. Or if you consider orifice plate, where the pressure drop depends upon the flow rate. So this is always in contact with the system which is to be, or physical quantity which is to be measured. So if there is more than one sensing element in a system, the element is in contact with the process and it is termed as a primary sensing element. Otherwise, it is a secondary sensing element. And the second element is the signal conditioning element. So this will take the output of sensing element and converts it into a form more suitable for further processing, usually a DC voltage, DC current, or a frequency signal. For example, amplifier which amplifies the millivolts into a volts, or an oscillator which converts an impedance changes into a variable frequency voltages. And another element is the signal processing element. So this element takes the output which is coming out of the conditioning element and converts it into a form more suitable for the presentation. For example, analog to a digital converter. So which converts a voltage into a digital form for the input to a computer. Or a computer which calculates the measured value of a variable from the incoming digital data. So typical calculations like computation of a total mass of a product gas from a flow rate and a density data. So from the processing element, the data transmission element will transmit the data into a data presentation element. So data presentation element measured in the data presentation element, the measured value in the form which can be easily recognized by the observer. Example, visual display unit, or a alphanumeric display, or a character record, etc. These are the different ways in which the data is presented and which can be easily recognized by the observer. So this is the main structure of any types of measurement system. And when you come to a temperature measurement, temperature system with a thermocouple sensing element, we have a block diagram like this, where the figure shows the temperature system with a thermocouple sensing element. So first element is the sensing element, where we use a type of thermo sensing element or a thermal sensor like a thermocouple. So this gives a millivolt output, and the signal conditioning consists of a circuit to compensate for changes in the reference junction temperature and an amplifier. The voltage signal is converted into a digital form using an analog to digital converter. The computer corrects for sensor non-linearity and the measured value is displayed on the VDU, visual display unit. So whatever we discussed in the main structure, the same structure we are going to use for the temperature measurement system here. So this is the sensing element, this is the signal conditioning element, and these two constitute a signal processing element. And finally, we have a data presentation. It is usually visual display visual display in it. And all of you know about sensor. Sensor is an element which produces signal relating to the quantity being measured. It is a device that detects, measures a signal or stimulus, acquires information from the real world, and the actuator is a device that generates a signal or stimulate. The sensor, which receives signals from the signal from the real world, and transfer feedback system will transfer it to the real world again through a actuator. So when you come to the type of measurement, we have a direct measurement and indirect measurement. Where the direct measurement, sensors are directly measures the parameters of interest. For example, measuring distance by a scale, or a displacement sensors measuring diameter of a blood vessel. And in case of indirect measurement, there is no direct contact of the sensor with the parameter of interest. Here, we'll measure the parameter of interest indirectly, without direct contact. For example, measure distance by optical method, where we use a telescope to calculate the distance. Displacement sensor measuring movement of a microphone diameter to qualify liquid movement through the heart. We also have a contact type and non-contact type of measurement. Contact type, where the sensing element of a measuring device has a contact with the medium whose characteristics are being measured, whereas in case of non-contact type, this sensor does not have any direct contact with the physical contact with the medium. Example, the optical, radioactive, and some of the electrical or electronic measurement belongs to this type of category. When you consider temperature measurement with respect to a rocket, here the temperature, as you see here, the temperature varies with respect to altitude. So as the altitude, depending upon the altitude, the temperature will also varies in case of rockets. Now, what are the desirable characteristics of a temperature in order to withstand this variation? The desirable temperature sensor characteristics includes the temperature sensor should be, it should have a wide range of temperature. The temperature range of a sensor defines the temperature at which the sensor is rated to operate safely and provide accurate measurement. Each type of sensors has a specified temperature range based on the property of the material. And another important characteristic that the temperature sensor should have is the repeatability. So as you know, repeatability is defined as the deviation between the measurement in a sequence where the object under test is in the same and approaches its value from same direction every time. Measurement have to be made under a short enough time duration so that it allows a significant long-term, it should not allow the significant long-term drift. Repeatability is usually specified as a percentage of sensor range. And another important characteristic of temperature sensor is accuracy. As with any measurement applications, understanding accuracy needs a critical in confirming a reliable result. Sensor and measurement hardware selection play a significant role in absolute measurement accuracy, but smaller details such as cabling, relative proximity to another equipment, shielding, grounding, all this plays a very important role in the accuracy of the sensor. And another characteristic is the fast response or response with respect to your time. Response time is a measure of the time a sensor takes to respond to a change in a temperature. Many factors can cause a response times to increase or decrease depending upon the requirement. So the temperature sensor should be used whenever it is required to respond fastly, then such type of temperature, some type of temperature sensor used. If it is required to respond slowly, then some other type of temperature sensors are to be used. And easy for calibration. For highest accuracy, you know that the sensor should be calibrated at one or more known temperature. So it should be easy for calibration. And cost of the temperature sensor. So as you know, with as with many aspects of the project, cost can be a key limiting factor. One must also consider the added cost of wiring, mounting, and signal conditioning when considering a total system cost. So these are some of the characteristics that a temperature sensor should have during the selection of temperature sensor. In addition to this, so the relationship between the output from the sensor and the temperature, that should be simple as far as possible. Okay. So these are some of the desirable temperature sensor characteristics. When it comes to different types of temperature sensors and different options which are available for us for selecting the temperature are thermoelectric devices. Most common type is called thermocouple, can be made of small enough to place inside catheters or hypodermic needles. Resistance temperature detectors, RTDs, metal resistance, where the metal resistance changes with the temperature. Platinum, nickel, copper, metal are typically used. Positive temperature coefficients. Thermistors are also known as thermally sensitive resistors formed from semiconductor materials, not metals, often composite of ceramics and metallic oxides like copper, manganese, cobalt, or iron. Typically have a negative temperature coefficient. Thermostats, these are the contact type electromechanical temperature sensors. A bimetallic strip which is used to convert the temperature change into a mechanical displacement. Radiant temperature sensors, photon energy changes with temperature measured optically by photodetectors. Integrated circuit temperature sensors, various temperature effects in silicon manipulated by a circuit and proportional to the absolute temperature circuit. So like this, we have many options for selection of the temperatures, and in this session, we'll discuss the working of some of these or all types of temperature sensors, how it works. So first, let me start with the thermocouple. As you know, thermocouple is a two-terminal element consisting of two dissimilar metal wires joined at the ends. So this works on the Seebeck effect. See, as per the Seebeck effect, a conductor generates a voltage when it is subjected to a temperature gradient. Temperature gradient. So measuring this voltage requires the use of a second conductor material. So with the help of single conductor, we can't measure the voltage. We need a second conductor. Suppose if you use a second conductor like this of material nickel chromium alloy and nickel chromium alloy, that means both are of same material. So is it possible to observe a difference in voltage at the ends of the two wires composed of the same material? No, we can't find the difference in the voltage when you use the same material. So therefore, the other material needs to be composed of different material. So we can't use the same material. So the two material used for the thermocouple must be of different materials. Say for example, if you use one material as a nickel chromium alloy and another maybe a copper nickel alloy, like this two different materials are used. So when you use the two different material, the relation between the temperature difference and the voltage varies with respect to a material. Whatever the type of material you use, depending upon that, there is a relation between the temperature difference and the voltage. So the voltage difference of the two dissimilar metals can be measured and related to a corresponding temperature gradient according to equation Vs is equal to S into delta T, where delta T is the temperature difference and V is the voltage. So this chart gives the thermocouple sensor color codes, extension and compensating leads. Depending upon the code type of the thermocouple, say for example, J type thermocouple means the material used is iron and constant ton, and sensitivity of that is 0 to 750 degrees Celsius, and color is black color. Like this, so we have a different types of thermocouple and their color and their operating range. So measuring a temperature, to measure temperature using a thermocouple, you cannot just connect the thermocouple to a measurement system, that is a voltmeter. Then what you need to do? The voltage measured by your system is proportional to the temperature difference between the primary junction is also called odd junction, and the junction where the voltage is being measured, that is called reference junction. So voltage measured by the system is proportional to the temperature difference between the odd junction and the reference junction. So therefore, in order to determine the absolute temperature at the odd junction, you need to measure the temperature at the reference junction. So this is at the odd junction, and to measure the temperature at this odd junction, you need to measure the temperature at reference junction. Then how can we determine the temperature at the reference junction? There are different ways to measure the temperature at the reference junction. One commonly used method is the ice bath method, where the reference junction is placed in the ice bath here. As you can see here, this is the odd junction and this is the cold junction, where the cold junction or reference junction is placed in the ice bath. And these NICT thermocouple reference tables are generated. NICT, that is National Institute of Standards and Technology, thermocouple reference tables are generated with a reference temperature at 0 degrees Celsius. So the measured voltage is equal to the voltage at odd junction minus voltage measured at the reference temperature. Or the voltage at the measured at the odd junction is equal to voltage measured plus voltage measured at the reference junction. That means if we know the voltage temperature relation of our thermocouple, we can determine the temperature at the hot junction. So is it really that easy? So it is not so easy because of the non-linearity in the Seebeck coefficient. See, thermocouple output voltages are highly non-linear. The Seebeck coefficient can vary by a factor of 3 or more over an operating temperature range of thermocouple. Here you can see the plot of Seebeck coefficient versus temperature, which is highly non-linear. So temperature conversion equation, here we have the equation, one of the equation which is a polynomial equation which is used to calculate the thermoelectric voltage, where E is equal to A0 plus A1T plus A2T square plus etc. E is the thermoelectric voltage, An is the thermocouple type depending upon the polynomial coefficient, and T is the temperature in degrees Celsius, and N is the order of polynomial, and NIST publishes a relation that is a polynomial coefficient for a different types of thermocouples, that is as shown in the figure, as shown in the table. So thermocouple voltages are non-linear with temperature, so therefore we cannot simply add the temperature of the cold junction to the temperature computed from the thermocouple voltage. So in order to accurately determine the thermocouple temperature, the proper method is to convert the cold junction temperature to a voltage, add this cold junction voltage to the measured thermocouple voltage. So first you need to convert the cold junction temperature to the voltage at the cold junction, add this cold junction voltage to the measured thermocouple voltage. Convert the summed cold junction voltage and the thermocouple voltage to a thermocouple temperature. This is the usual procedure which is used to measure the thermocouple temperature accurately. So for example, look at this table. This is a table which is given by NICT for the type T thermocouple. That is, see, in this table at the left hand side we have a column which is the temperature in degrees Celsius, which is in the increment of 10. Whereas at the right hand side we have a temperature which is for the increment of 1 degrees. Okay, for different temperature with the increment of 1 degrees. So for example, if you want to know the temperature at say 34 degrees Celsius. So 30 degrees we have here. Okay, so for 34 degrees, you have to move to the right side for the fourth column here. So read the value which is under fourth column corresponding to this 30. I think it is 1.403 millivolt. Okay, that is the temperature in millivolt corresponding to 1.362. So that is the temperature corresponding to temperature of the thermocouple in millivolts corresponding to 34 degree Celsius. Okay, like this one can read the temperature in temperature and we can convert that into millivolts using this table. So for example, say voltage difference of the hot and cold junction. Suppose if it is equal to 3.409 millivolts, voltage difference between the hot and cold junction, if it is equal to 3.409 millivolts, what is the temperature of the hot junction if the cold junction is at 22 degrees Celsius? So from this, you can find out what is the temperature at the hot junction by making use of this table. If the cold junction is at 22 degrees Celsius. Voltage difference between the hot and cold junction given is 3.409. And temperature of the hot junction, you need to find out if the cold junction is at 22 degrees Celsius. How to do this? So at 22 degrees Celsius, that is the reference junction, voltage is 22. 20 is here. You move to the right side to the column under 2. So that gives the temperature at 22 degrees Celsius. So it is equal to 0.870. Okay. So that is the reference junction voltage at 22 degrees Celsius. Okay. Now the voltage difference is 3.409 millivolts. So therefore, hot junction voltage is 3.409 millivolts plus 0.870 millivolts. So that is equal to 4.279 millivolts. Now corresponding to this millivolts, so you can find what is the temperature of the hot junction. So temperature of the hot junction corresponding to 4.279. So here we have a 4.279. So corresponding temperature is 100 degrees Celsius. Otherwise, if you take this as a 4.279, so it is 90 plus 10. That comes to 100 again. Okay. So therefore, the temperature at the hot junction is therefore 100 degrees Celsius. So like this, knowing the voltage difference between the hot and cold junction, you can find out the hot junction temperature if you know the cold junction temperature. So for example, so let me take another example. So if the voltage difference between the hot and cold junction is say 4.472 millivolts, okay, then what is the temperature of the hot junction if the cold junction is at minus 5 degrees Celsius? Now it is minus 5 degrees Celsius, which is lower than the table reference of 0 degrees Celsius. Okay. So in order to find out the hot junction temperature here, so first at minus 5 degrees Celsius, the cold junction voltage is minus 5 degree. Here we have a minus 10 degree. So you move to the right side. Okay, note on the value below the fifth column. That is the temperature 5. So minus 10 plus 5, it is minus 5. So minus 5, the millivolt reading is minus 0.193 millivolts. That is the cold junction voltage. Okay. And the hot junction voltage is therefore 4.472. That is the difference in voltage between hot and cold junction. 4.472 minus 0.193 millivolts, which comes to 4.279 millivolts again. Okay. So the temperature corresponding to this 4.279 millivolts. So again 4.27, you can take this or this, both will give 100 degrees Celsius. Okay. So like this, one can find out the hot junction temperature, knowing the difference between the difference in voltage reading between the hot and cold junction and the cold junction temperature. So is this really practical for a rocket? Because rocket, as you already seen in the plot, was a plot of temperature versus altitude. The temperature varies with respect to altitude. In case of rocket, both cold junction as well as hot junctions are not at 0 degrees Celsius. It is above 0 degree Celsius. Okay. So therefore, practically, this type of compensation is not work out for the case of rocket. Then what is the another method of determining the temperature at the reference junction? Then you have to make use of cold junction compensation. Compensation is provided for the cold junction. How it works? See here, so in case of cold junction compensation, we place a temperature sensor near the temperature transmitter terminal. Near to the temperature transmitter, some temperature sensors are provided in a cold junction compensation, or we call it as a cold junction compensation. In order to understand this, how it works, the cold junction compensation, so let us consider temperature T1 and T2, where T1 is at the cold junction and T2 is at the hot junction. If both temperature of hot and cold junctions are above 0 degrees Celsius, the device receives a lower EMF than the cold junction temperature is 0 degree Celsius. The thermocouple generates an EMF E1 millivolts at a temperature of T1. So T1, at a temperature T1, the thermocouple generates an EMF of E1. Similarly, at a temperature T2, it will generate an EMF of E2. Okay, then the potential difference is E2 minus E1, which corresponds to T2 minus T1. So in order to obtain T2, temperature at 2, then we need to add E1. We need to add this E1 to the potential difference E2 minus E1 for the elimination of E1. So because here E1 is corresponding to T1 and E2 is corresponding to T2. Okay, in order to find out the temperature at T2, so E2 minus E1 is the EMF difference or the voltage difference between the hot and cold junction. Okay, and you need to add this E1 for this E2 minus E1 to get the temperature at T2. Okay, so therefore, in order to measure the temperature accurately, we need to add the EMF value which corresponds to the T1 to the measured EMF. To add this EMF is called the cold junction compensation. So in order to understand this more clearly, so let us assume that we are using a type E thermocouple to measure T2, which is a process temperature. So let this process temperature is at 550 degrees Celsius, and another thermocouple junction T1 temperature is at a room temperature, which is 25 degrees Celsius. Here process temperature is at 550 degrees Celsius, and the reference temperature or room temperature is at 25 degrees Celsius. So this is the table corresponding to E-type thermocouple. Okay. At 25 degrees Celsius, room temperature voltage is at 25 degrees Celsius. As I said, in order to get the voltage at 25 degrees Celsius, so go to this 20 degrees Celsius, then move to the right side and take the reading below the fifth column, that is 1.495 millivolt. Okay, that is the voltage temperature, room temperature voltage in millivolts. Okay, that is at 25 degrees Celsius, the temperature voltage is 1.495 millivolts. And at process temperature is at 550 degrees Celsius. So 550 degrees Celsius, we directly get at 550 degrees Celsius, the voltage is 41.053 millivolts. Okay, so these two you can note down directly from the table. Now, the potential difference, that means the voltage difference between these two. One is at room temperature, another is at process temperature. If you take the difference in voltage between these two, the potential difference is 39.55 millivolts. Okay. Now the temperature corresponding to this 39.55 millivolts. What is the temperature corresponding to 39.55 millivolts? So you can see here 39.55 comes in between these two readings. That is 530 plus 1 and 530 plus 2. So you have to interpolate the reading between these two to get 39.55. So approximately it comes to 531.5. Okay, it is 531 and 532. In between, if you interpolate it, so you will get approximately 531.5 degrees Celsius. So temperature value based on 39.55 millivolt, which is equivalent to the 531.5 degrees Celsius. But the actual process temperature is at 550 degrees Celsius. So therefore, the error is 550 minus 531.5. that comes to around 18.5 degrees Celsius is the error if you use this method. Okay, so therefore we need to compensate this. In order to compensate this, the temperature error will be compensated using a cold junction compensation. As I said, in case of cold junction compensation, the temperature sensors are placed near the temperature transmitter terminals. Okay, suppose if you use a cold junction compensation, how the temperature or how the error is minimized, you just check it out. So see, if the temperature sensors are placed near the temperature transmitter, the temperature that is at a room temperature T1 and the value corresponding to that is 25 degrees Celsius, the value corresponding to that is 1.495 millivolts. Okay, the temperature sensor which is placed near the temperature transmitter will read a millivolt of 1.495 millivolts. Now this measured millivolt will be added to the already measured potential difference value, that is 39.55 millivolts, which is already measured. Now add this 1.495 to this 39.55, that comes to around 41.045 millivolts. So now check the temperature corresponding to this. The temperature corresponding to this 41.045. 41.045. 41.045. So approximately it is 550 degrees Celsius. That is the process temperature. Like this, the temperature is compensated with the cold junction compensation. Okay. So next we have another type of sensors, that is a thermopile. This is an extension of thermocouple, where thermopiles comprises a number of thermocouples which are connected in series, wherein the odd junctions are arranged side by side or in the form of a star. So that you can see it here. They are arranged in series. Thermocouples are arranged in series or in the form of a star. So this is known as a thermopile. So in such cases, the total output is given by sum of all the individual EMF. The advantage of combining thermocouple to form a thermopiles is that, suppose if there are n identical thermocouples are combined to form a thermopile, then the total EMF will be n times the output of the single thermocouple. For a special purpose application such as measurement of temperature of sheet glass, thermopiles are constructed using a series of semiconductors. For average temperature measurement, thermocouple can be connected, instead of series, it can be connected in parallel. During formation, one has to ensure that hot junction of the individual thermocouple are properly insulated from one another. This is very, very important, and proper care should be taken for proper insulation of each of the thermocouple when you are using thermopiles. And this shows some of the important characteristics with respect to thermocouple, where the temperature ranges from -270 to 1800 degree Celsius. Accuracy plus or minus 0.5 degrees Celsius, and linearity, it requires at least fourth order polynomial or equivalent lookup table. Then the responsiveness is less than 1 second, excitation non-required, and output is usually in the form of voltage. So these are some of the characteristics of thermocouple. Next we can compare this characteristic with other type of temperature sensors. Another type of temperature sensor which is normally used is resistive temperature detector, or simplified as RTD. So instead of using voltage as a thermocouple does, this will take the advantage of another characteristic of a matter which changes with temperature, that is resistance. So thermocouple uses the variation of voltage, but here it uses the variation of resistance for measurement of temperature. The relationship between an RTD's resistance and the surrounding temperature is highly predictable, allowing for accurate and consistent temperature measurement. And these RTDs are normally used in case of air conditioning and refrigeration, servicing, food processing, stoves, and grills. And this is the typical RTD where we have a platinum lid and resistance element, and which is protected with a casing. So resistance temperature detectors, these are the two terminal devices usually made out of platinum, and it has a positive temperature coefficient and tends to be linear over a different operating range. And the resistance is usually given by this equation where R naught is the resistance at that is equal to 100 ohms, and T naught is the temperature which is equal to 0 degrees Celsius, and alpha is a coefficient that depends upon the type of material used. For a platinum resistor, that the value of alpha is this. It depends upon the type of material which is used. So therefore, at 10 degrees Celsius, R is equal to, if you substitute here, so you will get R as 1003.85 ohms. So these are the best operated using small constant current source, and accuracy of 0.01 degrees Celsius can be achieved using this, but it is expensive type of sensors. And when you compare this RTD with a thermocouple, we have a temperature range. Thermocouple varies from minus 270 to 1800 degrees Celsius, whereas RTDs varies from minus 250 to 900 degrees Celsius. So this has a linear over wide operating ranges and low sensitivity. RTDs are capable of higher accuracy and can maintain stability for many years, while the thermocouple can drift within first few hours of use. And regarding cost, RTDs are higher cost than thermocouple. If the process requires a very fast response to your temperature changes, then a thermocouple is the best choice, because the response is less than 1 second here, whereas RTDs is 1 to 10 seconds. Response is very slow response when you use RTDs. Where the fast response is required, then the thermocouples are the best. Another type of temperature sensor is the thermistor. As you know, thermistor is a combination of word thermally sensitive resistor. It is a thermally sensitive resistor. So it consists of two, it's a combination of two words, thermally sensitive resistor. It's a resistor whose resistance changes with the temperature. Resistive element is generally a metal oxide, ceramic containing copper, nickel, manganese, or cobalt. Sorry. Packaged in a thermally conductive glass bead or disc with two metal leads. Suppose we have a 1 kilo ohm thermistor. What does this mean? At a room temperature, the resistance of a thermistor is 1 kilo ohm. What happens to the resistance as we increase the temperature? So as you increase the temperature, most material will exhibit negative temperature coefficient, NTC, negative temperature coefficient. What it means? So resistance drops with increase in temperature. So this is the figure which shows the variation of temperature with respect to resistance. As the resistance drops, the temperature, as the temperature increases, the resistance decreases here. And for some other material, we can also have a positive temperature coefficient wherein the resistance value increases as the temperature increases. It is a reverse process. Okay, we can have both negative temperature coefficient as well as positive temperature coefficient depending upon the type of material. Now, converting resistance to temperature. How to convert resistance to a temperature? There are many methods to convert resistance measured using a RTDs to a or thermistor to a temperature. One of the commonly used method is Stennard equation, and this is the name which is given after John S. Stennard and Stanley R. Art, who first developed and published the equation. The equation relates the temperature to a resistance within the temperature range of minus 80 degrees Celsius to 260 degrees Celsius. And according to Stennard equation, the relation between temperature and the resistance is given by this. So this is a third order polynomial using natural log, and it can be an accurate method to derive the temperature from a known resistance. And in this equation, T is the temperature in Kelvin and R is the resistance at a temperature T, and R reference is the reference resistance at reference temperature. A1, B1, C1, D1 are the Stennard coefficient. How do we determine this coefficient? So if you know this coefficient, one can find out the relation between temperature and the resistance, and how to find out this coefficient. Now you just see the table here. So there is a table. So this gives the value of coefficients A1, B1, C1, D1 depending upon the type of material. So you can directly select this coefficient and you can find the relation between temperature and the resistance. Suppose in case if you lost the data sheet, don't you believe it or would like to verify the values? Yes. Here, as you know, the Stennard equation which relates the temperature to a resistance by using this equation, and this equation can go up to infinite order. But as you go up to infinite order, the error is very, very small. Therefore, you can truncate the order of polynomial to a first order polynomial. That means you can truncate, you can neglect the second order or third order term, and you can restrict it to a first order term. Then the equation looks like this if you neglect the higher order term. So if you use this equation, one can measure a 3 resistance at 3 temperatures, then use matrix inversion, that is linear algebra, or you can also use least square method, least square fit method in order to get the relation between T and R. Like this, one can convert the resistance to a temperature. How is resistance measured? So thermistor resistance are which produces a resistance which could be converted into a voltage signal. Okay. How could we do this? So one of the common way for a microcontroller to capture analog data is via an analog to a digital converter. You cannot directly read the thermistor resistance with an ADC. The series thermistor resistor combination as shown in the figure provides a simple solution which is in the form of a voltage divider. So here you can see the voltage divider. We have a series thermistor resistor combination. So using this, one can find the temperature resistance that is given by this. That means the resistance is converted into a voltage signal where V out is the output voltage and Vs is the source voltage and RT is the resistance at this and R1 is the resistance at this. Resistance at the thermistor and resistance at the where it is divided into R1 and RT. Power dissipation in the thermistor. A current must pass through the thermistor in order to measure the voltage and to calculate the resistance. So when the current is passed here, the current which is flowing through the thermistor generates it because the thermistor dissipates electrical power. So that is related to power is equal to I square into RT, where I is the current and RT is the resistance of the thermistor. So heat which is generated causes a temperature rise in the thermistor. There is a rise in the temperature because of this heat generated. And this is called self-heating. Then you may ask whether this self-heating is good or bad. So definitely the self-heating is not good, it is bad. So why self-heating is bad? Self-heating can introduce an error into the measurement. This increase in device temperature is related to a power dissipated and power dissipation factor delta, where P is equal to delta into delta T, where delta is the dissipation factor and delta T is the device temperature, increase in device temperature. So P is in watt and delta T is rise in temperature in degrees Celsius. So for example, if I is equal to 5 milliamps and RT is equal to 4 kilo ohms and delta is 0.067 watt per degree Celsius, what is delta T? So this P is also related to I square into R. So therefore, by using that relation, we can have I square into R is equal to delta into delta T. Using that, you will get delta T as 1.5 degree Celsius. Okay. So how can we reduce the effect of self-heating? Self-heating can be reduced by increasing the resistance of the thermistor. If you increase the resistance of the thermistor, automatically the self-heating can be reduced. Otherwise, that leads to an error like this. So how does a thermistor works in a controlled system? So as you know, the main use of thermistor is to measure the temperature of a device. In a temperature controlled system, the thermistor is a small but important piece of a large system. A temperature controller monitors the temperature of the thermistor. It then tells a heater or a cooler when to turn on or off to maintain the temperature of the sensor. There are three main components which are used to regulate the temperature of a device. Here you can see the three components: the temperature sensor, the temperature controller, this is the temperature controller, and TEC. T is the thermoelectric cooler or the Peltier device. Okay, so these are the three main components of used to regulate the temperature of a device. This sensor head is attached to the cooling plate that needs to maintain a specific temperature to cool the device, and the wires are attached to the temperature controller. The temperature controller is also electronically connected to a Peltier device which heats and cools the target device. Heat sink is attached to a Peltier device to help with a heat dissipation. The job of the temperature sensor, this temperature sensor, is to send the temperature feedback to the temperature controller. The sensor has a small amount of current running through it called a bias current, which is sent back to the temperature, which is sent by the temperature controller. The controller cannot read resistance, so it must convert the resistance changes to the voltage changes by using a current source to apply a bias current across the thermistor to produce the control voltage. The temperature controller is the main brain of the operation. It takes sensor information, compares it to what the unit to be cooled needs. That is set point. Whatever the set point is there, so that is to be maintained. So that can be done with the help of temperature controller, which receives feedback from the sensor. So not only this, the location of the thermistor also plays a very important role. The location of a thermistor in a system affects both stability as well as accuracy of the control system. For best stability, the thermistor needs to be placed as close to the thermoelectric or resistive heater as possible. For best accuracy, the thermistor needs to be located close to the device requiring temperature control. So ideally, the thermistor is embedded in a device, but it can also be attached using thermally conductive paste or a glue. So even if a device is embedded, air gaps should be eliminated using thermal paste or a glue. So as you can see in the figure, two thermistors are placed. One is attached directly to the device. This is the thermistor which is attached directly to the device, and other one is placed far away in the remote area or at a distance away from the device. If the sensor is too far away from the device, there is a lag in time which significantly reduces the accuracy of the temperature measurement. While placing the thermistor too far from the Peltier device reduces the stability. And this plot shows the temperature response based on the location of the thermistor. Suppose if the thermistor is placed directly on the device, then the time response is, as you can see in the green color. If it is at the remote place, that is far away, then that is represented by a red color here. That means there is a time lag between these two. So thermistor which is attached to the device reacts more quickly when compared to a thermistor which is attached away from the device. So once the placement of the sensor has been chosen, the rest of the system needs to be configured. This includes determining the base thermistor resistance, the bias current for the sensor, and also the set point temperature of the load on the temperature controller. So this is a table which shows the comparison between thermocouple, RTD, and a thermistor. So you can see the temperature range, how it changes depending upon the temperature sensors. So for a thermistor, it is -100 to 450 degrees Celsius. So other parameters you can see your time response less than 1 second, 1 to 10 seconds, 1 to 5 seconds. So by comparing this, you can decide so what type of the temperature sensors is required for a suitable temperature. And stability, with respect to stability, epoxy coated NTC thermistor can experience a drift of about 0.2 degrees Celsius per year, whereas hermetically sealed NTC thermistor experience a much smaller drift of about 0.02 degrees Celsius per year. On the other hand, thermocouples experience a drift of about 1 to 2 degrees Celsius per year, largely due to chemical changes in the sensor, such as chemical oxidation. So this is one of the important difference between thermistor and the thermocouple. Another type of temperature sensor is the thermostat. Thermostat is a contact type electromechanical temperature sensor. It's a bimetallic strip which is used to convert the temperature change into a mechanical displacement. And this acts as a temperature sensor. So there is two metals are used here, usually copper, steel, nickel, tungsten, or aluminum. These are the combination of these materials are used in order to convert temperature change into a mechanical displacement and thus acts as a temperature sensor. Bimetallic thermometers are used in a residential devices like air conditioners, ovens, industrial devices like heaters, hot wires, refineries, etc. They are simple, durable, and cost-efficient way of temperature measurement. So how this thermostat work? Thermostat consists of two thermally different metals stuck together back to back. You can see here, so two metals are held together here. So when it is cold, the contacts are closed and current passes through the thermostat. So when it gets hotted, one metal expands more than the other and the bonded bimetallic strip bends either upwards or downwards, opening the contact, preventing the current from flowing. Here you can see here. It's electric contact when it is closed and electrical contacts open due to heat up. When it is heated up, so this bimetal will bend either upwards or downwards, so thereby opening is provided here. Then we have integrated silicon linear sensors. An integrated silicon linear sensor is a three-terminal device which has a power and ground inputs, and it is relatively simple to use and cheap. Circuitry inside does linearization and signal conditioning, and it produces an output voltage linearly dependent on temperature. So when compared to other temperature measurement devices, these sensors are less accurate, operate over a narrow temperature range, and are less responsive. We have another type of temperature sensor called fiber optic temperature sensors. So operating principle is based on the well-known and reproducible phenomena, the band gap variation in the absorption spectrum of semiconductor gallium arsenide with respect to the temperature. This gallium arsenide can also be looked at as variable optical filter. Wavelength is towards visible or blocked, wavelength towards infrared or transmitted. A direct contact temperature sensor which has no drift and no recalibration. And the system consists of a light source. This is a light source, optical coupler, and a spectrometer. Some of the light is absorbed here. So the light which is coming out of the source passes through this optical, and then it passes through a fiber optic probe. This optical fiber delivers a white light to a semiconductor, that is to a sensor here, which is glued to the probe tip. Some of the light is absorbed depending upon the temperature at the tip of the probe, and the light is reflected by dielectric mirror and returns through the same fiber for the analysis on the board spectrometer. Highly reliable monitors suitable for automotive. So here the percentage of received versus transmitted energy is a function of temperature. Other temperature measurement techniques are ultrasonic thin wire thermometer, where the velocity of sound depends upon the temperature, high temperature range 2000 to 3000 degrees Celsius, maximum error is 30 degrees Celsius. Quartz crystal thermometer, resonant frequency of quartz crystal oscillator is linearly related to a temperature, accuracy plus or minus 0.04 degrees Celsius, range minus 80 degrees Celsius to 250 degrees Celsius. Johnson's noise thermometer, where the noise voltage power density spectrum is a function of temperature, accuracy plus or minus 20 degrees Celsius, range from 400 to 1770 Kelvin. Nuclear quadrupole resonance thermometer, absorption frequency decreases with increasing temperature, accuracy is plus or minus 1 Kelvin, range is 90 to 398 Kelvin. Eddy current thermometer, non-contacting temperature measurement, the magnitude of eddy current depends on temperature and the distance, accuracy less than plus or minus 3 degrees Celsius, and range from 25 to 300 degrees Celsius. These are the other type of temperature measurement techniques. So calibration. How could we calibrate the temperature sensors? For the highest accuracy, the individual sensor should be calibrated at one or more temperature. An easy way to set the temperature is with a liquid bath, where the temperature is 0 and 100 degrees Celsius, are particularly easy to produce using ice bath and a boiling temperature of water. So each probe includes an individual NIST traceable calibration certificate with a test data of 0, 25, 70 and 100 degrees Celsius. So tracking the rate of temperature changes. A temperature sensor cannot track the changing temperature instantaneously. This can lead to a significant error for rapidly changing system. If a slow sensor is placed into a rocket that is launched to a high altitude, the sensor may not be able to track the rate of temperature change. The critical property of a temperature measurement device is how quickly it responds to a change in external temperature. Thermal system step response. As you know, the step response is nothing but it is one of the convenient and widely used index for showing how fast a response can reach a steady state. So thermal time constant is one of the index which is used to show how fast a sensor can reach its steady state. This is the time it takes for a response to reach about 63% of the total response. When the sensor undergoes a step change in its input. In practice, if the thermometer reaches 99% of the liquid temperature, it can be considered to have reached the steady state value. So this occurs at about T is equal to 5 times the T, that is a thermal time constant. So here you can see the response curve here. This response curve is not so simple, but it varies according to this. That is, this is a first order equation, first order system, and the step response of an ideal first order system is according to this equation. And different categories of application. So now wherever, I'll show you some of the application where it is important to measure and monitor the temperature. First, in case of automotive, the monitoring and regulating process temperature during every stage of manufacturing process is one of the key factor in temperature measurement. In case of automotive, for example, in a thermoforming of automotive exterior part, so here the greatest challenge for the production process of an automotive exterior part is to secure a constant temperature monitoring. Even in a pilot production, a continuous temperature measurement is essential in order to optimize the process and maximize both quality as well as output of a serial production. And another example in an automotive is laminating of interior. So vehicle interiors are partly equipped with different surface decors during a laminating process. This process takes place at around 120 degrees Celsius. The decor temperature can be controlled and optimized during this time. So it is also required to measure and monitor temperature in a 3D printing and additive manufacturing. Monitoring and regulation of temperature during every process of a 3D printing and additive manufacturing is critical in order to ensure high quality parts production. And then laser metal deposition. As you know, laser metal deposition is an additive production process which uses laser beam to form a pool of molten metal on a metallic substrate. The metal powder is brought into that metal pool continuously via nozzle, and the sensor for temperature measurement must withstand high energy density of the laser or its reflection. The heat distribution behind the beam is an indication of good or bad welding quality. And cladding of wire arc additive manufacturing. The wire arc additive manufacturing is a combination of two processes: gas metal arc welding and additive manufacturing. The metal wire is melted by using an electric arc and deposited layer by layer until desired 3D shape is created. The temperature monitoring during the cladding process and the information of heat distribution gives feedback of quality of the welding process. So not only in this temperature measurement is also required in an electronic devices where circuit boards are the core of the electronic industries, continuously getting smaller. Their power has to increase to meet the quality expectancy. To increase the product quality while decreasing the manufacturing time and lower production cost at the same time. State-of-the-art control and measuring process are applied from development to manufacturing as well as quality monitoring. It's a non-contact type of temperature measurement plays an important role in electronic industry. And fire prevention with non-contact temperature measurement. So when it comes to a fire prevention, speed comes first. The use of early fire detection system is becoming more and more important and is attracting a lot of attention, especially in industrial and recycling plants. These systems have become an important safety standards. So fire detection can be, early fire detection can be done with infrared cameras and infrared thermometer. It is an important protective measure in industrial design to prevent severe damage in the industrial plants as well as buildings. So temperature measurement is also required in a medical technology. Say, for example, production of glass syringes. During the production of glass syringes, the needle is glued to the glass tube. This process takes place at a temperature of about 125 degrees Celsius. So measuring and monitoring the temperature is required in order to assure a quality of the syringe. Sterilization of the glass bottles. During the sterilization, proper temperature level is important to produce aseptic glass bottles for a pharmaceutical product. Hence, the right temperature is to be secured and monitored. Not only in that, in the thermoforming of gum shields inlay. The first production step to produce gum shield inlays is the heating of plastic foil up to a certain temperature with an infrared emitter. Therefore, it is required to monitor the temperature and control the heating phase to ensure an ideal form temperature. So application of fiber optic temperature sensors, this shows the various areas where one can use the fiber optic temperature sensors. So like in energy utilities, power electronics, e-mobility, medical field. It is also used in the research lab like cryogenic research. It is also used in microwave heating, so, and in industry like glass manufacturing, processing control, mining application, etc. These are some of the applications where fiber optic temperature sensors can be used. So based on this, some of the consideration for design of temperature are accuracy, size, and sensor placement. Sensor accuracy represent how close the temperature is to the true value. In determining accuracy, it is important to consider all factors, including acquisition, circuitry, and linearity across the operating temperature range. Size, while size of the sensor makes an impact on the design, analyzing, and the overall circuit can yield a more optimized design. Sensor size also determines the thermal response time, which can be important for application like body temperature monitoring. Sensor placement of the or location of the sensor also plays a very important role. And to conclude this session, the thermocouples are typically used for very high temperature measurement or for their fast response, and thermistors are used for general purpose measurement. Integrated silicon linear sensors can be more convenient than a thermistor because they compensate for non-linearity. RTDs are more expensive but provide highest accuracy. These are some of the references which I have used. So thank you for your patience listening. And if you have any questions, you can ask.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your valuable information on temperature measurement and monitoring of thermosystems. Now I would like to request the participants to clear their doubts with the Mahendra Babu, sir.
Any questions? So if there are no questions, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Okay, thank you everyone. We'll be meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. with day 2 and a first session of the day 2. Okay, with our next speaker. And till then, have a nice day and have a nice evening ahead. Thank you, everyone. Please don't forget to provide the feedback in the Google form link provided in the WhatsApp group. Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir.